So here is at the debates. Remember this?
Believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. So I will tell you that on this subject,
Why are you laughing, Max? Max, why are you laughing?
I'd forgotten all these performances, but I remember she had T-shirts ready before the debate to sell. That girl was me.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Oh my God! It's going to talk about your fancy
speeches. It's like the most
speeches.
Cynical exploitation of identity that you're like going to sell T-shirts off. That girl was me.
That girl was me.
I mean, imagine if you're wearing that shirt now. Like, okay, it was you doing what? Like, what does that mean?
Here, a little bit more.
Do you agree today? Do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No,
do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well,
I
there
did
was
not
a failure of.
Okay, there you go. That was her big takedown. By the way, Joe Biden became the Democrats' anti-busing crusader. With a school desegregation lawsuit roiling Delaware in the 1970s, Mr. Biden led an effort in the Senate to end court-ordered busing.
Yeah, corn popping going to a integrated school under Biden.
Right.
I mean, he was a backlash right-wing Democrat when he was coming up in Delaware politics, and there were articles about him in local Delaware media about how, in Wilmington media about how he wasn't your ordinary liberal Democrat. He was breaking from the party's McGovernite base, and that's who he was throughout much of his career. I don't know if you have the clip up, but it's my favorite Biden clip where I think he's wearing suspenders. He's seated in the Senate Judiciary Committee, I think, and he's demanding that raves be illegalized. And he's calling for prosecuting rave promoters, bulldozing raves under the Crack House Act. And then he said, I don't care if they're guilty of anything. Find a justification. Just find one. Fabricate charges against them to ban raves.
I'm guessing his favorite movie is Footloose.
It was like The Preacher and Footloose, but it should be remixed with some trance music. I mean, it's just it's such a classic Biden performance.
So here it is. Here, let me hold it up to the camera. Maybe there is a little girl in California who was bused to school. That little girl was me. Oh my God!
Yeah, remember all her staged attacks and important performances during the debates. They were all designed to get her in the spotlight without challenging any of the establishment status quo priorities of the Democratic Party. So her other attack, I think, I don't know who she directed it against, but it was, do you support removing Donald Trump from Twitter? Mm-hmm. As if that's
yes.
Like, wow, that really is going to advance the hopes and dreams of Americans who are working 3 jobs.
So I'm selling a T-shirt now, Max. I don't know if you know this, but it's going to be up on the website. And it says, there was a little girl in California who put thousands of marijuana users in prison while letting Steve Mnuchin walk free after defrauding thousands out of their homes. That little girl was me.
Yeah. She presided, again, over 1,900 plus prosecutions. Right. And her excuse is, most of them didn't go to jail. But why didn't she provide instructions to the local prosecutors not to prosecute or do what her successor did? As soon as Kamala Harris was gone, they were able to expunge all of the convictions and just let everybody live their lives. That they had to wait for Kamala Harris to be gone.
They had to wait for her. Yeah. And we had to wait for her to get out of office so we could have reform.
If the Democrats were smart, they would take up the cause of marijuana. everybody's smoking it. It's much better for you than alcohol. Dana Rohrabacher, former Republican congressman, is going into business selling it.
So is John Boehner.
Yeah, it's a bipartisan issue. It's a real winner. You know, it'll help you in states like Arizona, where they can't quite get it legalized, but everyone is smoking it. It's a way to win people, to get people engaged who don't normally vote, but they will not touch it. And again, at the DNC the DNC Convention Committee, they refuse to call for it to be decriminalized, which I think 70% of Democratic voters support. So, I mean, we're just looking at the most undemocratic Democratic Party I can remember.
Well, 90% of the Democratic Party wants single-payer health care, and they vowed to it's not in the platform, and Joe Biden has vowed to veto it if it passes. Who are they representing? Well, we know they're representing their corporate interests, but it's like they can't even pretend to represent people anymore. And still Bernie and every other jagoff pretend progressive is yelling that you got to still fucking vote for them. Even as the Democratic Party continues to shit down their mouth, they keep telling with the shit coming out of their mouth, fucking vote blue. They're still doing it.
You know, one of the raps on John McCain picking Sarah Palin, besides the fact that like 95% of her brain was bong water, was the fact that he was very old and physically worn down, and she would potentially be the next president, which is frightening.
Right.
Now you have a scenario where Kamala Harris could be the next president.
That's right.
Very easily. You know, where the campaign, as I said, it's like weekended Biden's, and he's just kind of like being wheeled around on a gurney to the White House. And so now behind him. Yeah.
And so now all these people, you know, all my Hollywood blue check friends are going to be applauding this. And I even saw them quoting Hillary Clinton today already and acting like, instead of this is something we're going to have to fight against. Do you know, after the election, you're going to have to fight against them to get any fucking thing done? But they don't care because they're rich now. All my blue check Hollywood friends are super rich, and they don't know they didn't get kicked out of their house like Steve Mnuchin, and she didn't prosecute them. They didn't get thrown in jail for weed, and if they got arrested, they had a great lawyer and got off. Nothing's wrong. They have no problems that they need Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to solve. They have no problems. They got their health care. They got their medicine. They got their education. They got their kids' education. They got fucking everything. And all they could do is tell you to vote.
And presumably they didn't get molested by Catholic priests she refused to prosecute also.
That's right.
But as Biden said, nothing will fundamentally change when I'm elected.
Nothing will fundamentally change.
So that's, you know, I don't know what kind of 180 he's going to do on that right now with this pandemic, just lifting the mask on neoliberal capitalism and ripping a hole through the economy. But it's going to be fairly interesting. So far, he hasn't had to say anything. He hasn't had to campaign because, as Katha Pollitt at The Nation said, if he boiled babies in public, she would still vote for him.
Yeah, I know.
That's wonderful. It's like, you know, you can do whatever you want as long as you're not Trump, and just abuse us all you want and betray us all you want. And so now we have Kamala Harris, and I mean, whatever the VP pick, they played it up and waited as long as possible and fueled speculation in order to keep Biden in the spotlight without him actually having to say or do anything. That's right. And now we have the VP pick. I'm more concerned about the other cabinet picks, specifically on foreign policy, because if Susan Rice isn't the VP pick, and I don't know why she ever was considered, she is almost certain to be the nominee for Secretary of State. And this is someone who stood apart after Hillary left the State Department. She was really the leading warmonger in the Obama administration. I was watching a talk she gave last year about her book. I forget, had some phony title like Things Worth Fighting For. And she was boasting on stage at Georgetown University about how she was the lone voice in the Obama administration calling for bombing Syria in 2013. And she later realized she was wrong, but then she said Trump was right for bombing in 2017 and 2018. In my book, The Management of Savagery, I actually wrote about her a little bit. I'll just read you. It's a quick paragraph. Basically, you know, so they're preparing the case to go into Libya, to bomb Libya and take out Gaddafi. It's 2011. Obama is saying Gaddafi threatens a bloodbath that could destabilize an entire region. And he said that he's refusing to wait for the images of slaughter and mass graves before taking action. So they're not saying he's slaughtering anyone. They're just like, he's going to maybe, so we have to slaughter them. So here comes Susan Rice. Susan Rice took the humanitarian hysteria to new heights, claiming without a shred of evidence that Gaddafi was handing out supplies of Viagra to his troops to encourage mass rape. The risible allegation, first broadcast by the Qatari-run Al Jazeera, was soon picked up by the BBC and Associated Press. Luis Moreno Ocampo, the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, declared excitedly, "There's some information with Viagra, so it's like a machete. It's new. Viagra is a tool of massive rape." It was completely fake, and Susan Rice deployed this fake claim in order to stir up this regime change operation in Libya, where a civil war is still raging today. It's become a proxy war with actors from across the region ripping the country to shreds. The country's been turned into a failed state. It went from being one of the most, if not the most prosperous state with the highest quality of life in Africa to the least prosperous. And she helped return slavery to the African continent. So that's a legacy that isn't even being discussed. Everyone's saying, oh, well, Susan Rice had this role in Benghazi. That's what the Republicans say. Benghazi was this phony partisan distraction for the complete destruction of an entire country and the destabilization of an entire region in Africa. But those people don't matter. The only people who matter were the security guards at Benghazi. And it really speaks to how Susan Rice has survived this long and why she is where she is. She'll be Secretary of State. Defense Secretary will be Michelle Flournoy, allegedly. She's basically like this Beltway blob creature who has cooled her heels at a think tank called the Center for New American Security, which is funded by the arms industry and the State Department. Her previous director was Victoria Nuland, who oversaw the regime change operation in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And, Biden's NSC, his National Security Council director, would be Tony Blinken, who is another real Democratic war hawk who supported every regime change operation going back to Yugoslavia. These people still think that they can rule the world by force. These chicken hawks still think that they can cook up some humanitarian interventionist scenario and then send in the Air Force. And that's particularly dangerous, whereas Kamala Harris is just there as a sort of cipher for their interests, as someone who really isn't independent or capable of carving out her own space. That's precisely why she's there.
All right, so let me see what this is. Someone just texted me. This is Joe Biden. I'm going to guess it's going to be funny because he hates electronic music. Let's see. Oh, it says the rave thing.
Yeah, this is passing new ordinances relating to stiff criminal penalties for anyone who held a rave. The promoter, the guy who owned the building. I would put the son of a gun in jail. There's no doubt about where these raves are. In the middle of the desert. Arrest the promoter. Find a rationale. Keeping an unsafe. For example, I'm the guy who authored the crack house legislation. We can use the crack house legislation to tear down these buildings.
Wow. Find a rationale. We've got to stop kids from having parties. Wow.
Find a rationale. It's like there may not be any criminal violation, so plant evidence.
Yeah. Find a rationale. Twist the law. Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of amazing. That's kind of amazing. Over raves, over parties.
The other thing is he didn't really stutter there. He's really speaking very well.
Oh yeah. Now he can't even read a statement. Literally, he was trying to read a statement the other day and he fucked up. He had to stop and he tried to ad lib, but it fucked up even worse.
I mean, I love Trump, all the little jokes like Trump saying Yosemite and Thailand. But with Trump, you get like funny tweets of calling like James Comey and Clapper dirty cops. But Biden said, my Twitter won't be the problem. I'm like, that's probably the only good thing about Trump. And we're going to lose that.
I know. Right. Yeah.
I'm not supporting Trump. I'd prefer that Trump would leave office. I'd prefer that he not be in office just so this hysteria dies down.
And we can get back to actually talking about issues instead of evidence-free conspiracy theories that red bait the president of the United States and normalize McCarthyism on the left.
You know, that's one thing I'm hoping will die down, but I think we'll be left with China hysteria.
Yes.
And it will be advanced at the highest levels. And Biden is trying to campaign to Trump's right on China.
Yes.
When Trump is doing everything he can to turn up the heat on China and whip up complete hysteria among the public. So it's that, I mean, that's what we're going to be left with.
Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.